Welcome back on Diamond. Today I want to propose you a video about
a series of video about the 9th edition for Warhammer 40k released by the Games Workshop. So in the description you can find also the playlist where you can find all the videos related about the core rules and advanced rules related about this edition. So now we can start to see all the rules that we have to know. So we can talk about transports. I'm not talking about vehicles that transports, because there are some exceptions, because there are, for example, the Tyrants that has some ways to transport the models with the monsters. So pay attention to such difference, because talking about transports doesn't necessarily mean talking about vehicles, even if generally it's about them. Remember that every unit of transports has an amount of capacity that it specifies how much models it can transport. It doesn't refer to units but models. It means that, for example, this raid that has a 12 or 16 usually option about transporting, this can transport, for example, this unit of 5 scout, this unit of 5 space marines, and this charter, and that's the space. So it's about the amount of models, not the amount of unit. So remember that it can be used in such a way, and it's specified in the datasheet of every vehicle or every transport generally how much they can transport and what type of unit it can transport. So remember that you have to see case by case, so pay attention about this. A unit can embark on a transport if all the models in the unit are within 3 inches of that transport. Remember that you can embark, not mind if this unit has reached this within 3 inches, even if it has advanced, it has done a normal move, or has been falling back. So even falling back can let you embark. But you have to remember that you can't embark if the transport is engaged. So if there is a situation where the transport is engaged with an enemy unit, the units can't embark on such transport. So remember that there is such thing that it's really quite important to remember. One thing to remember that while that unit are embarked, they can't be affected by abilities, by stratagems, or by other things other than specifically specified. So remember that the units are immune to both maluses but also bonuses that can receive. So remember that there is such thing to remember, because for example you can't use an apothecary to bring back models while they are within a transport or so on. So pay attention. If the model of the transport make a falling back, remain stationary, make an advancement or so on, the unit inside the transport is considered have done the same action as the transport about what can happen. So remember that, for example, if the unit can fire while being embarked on the transport, if the transport moves or so on, the unit is considered have done the same action as the transport itself. And it has been specified in both the embarking and the other part in the summary about the embarking that the same model can't make the disembarking and embarking on another transport, or embarking and disembarking from the transport. It means that it's useful to forbid some game, for example, as a bulking out, because for example a model could be disembarking, then so using the 3 inch of the disembarking that we see, then moving and then embarking using another 3 inch freely one. So it means that it will be able to gain a lot of movement and so make that it can really almost teletransport itself, so it's not fair. And in such way it has been specified, so this I can say such trick can't be used, and it has been specified by the rules. So remember that there are such limitations. It has not been specified turn but phase, because a model can embark on a transport, and during the same turn maybe the vehicle is destroyed, and so the model has to disembark, so because it's forced to do this. So it has been specified the same phase, so pay attention. And about disembarking, you have to remember that there is a distinction compared to the embarking. It's that the embarking you have to be within 3 inch, but to disembark you have to be completely within. So it means that the embarking you only need to reach this part, so you have 3 inch completely, and the base can be out, right, touching the 3 inch. Instead, to disembark you have to be completely within with all your base from the transport itself. So pay attention, because it's an important distinction about the two different movements. And there is another specification about the disembarking. When you disembark, you set up the unit. So remember that you can't embark if there is a unit that is in melee, enemy unit that is in melee with the vehicle. But you can disembark if there is a unit in close combat. What you have to pay attention is that you have to be completely within, as I said, and so if the unit has a base that is less than 1 inch, like this normal base is, then you can make the disembarking. But you have to have, I want to remember you, a 1 inch of range of distance from this unit itself. So you have to pay attention when you do the different things, because if it happens to be this model instead, you could not be able, because this is more than 1 inch. So even if you think that you can try to put a distance of 1 inch of it, you'll not be able to put this model, so you can't disembark, and you have to pay a lot of attention how you do. But you have also to remember that you can disembark from every part of the transport itself, so you don't have the limitation about where to disembark. So if only a side of the vehicle is blocked by the close combat, you can disembark from the other part eventually. So there is options that are favorable but also a disadvantage. Remember that a unit that is disembarking from a vehicle can then move normally, even if it's considered being having mode disembarking, then also advance, it can shoot, and it can charge and fight normally. So disembarking doesn't forbid the unit to behave like normally. The only exception that is that it can't be considered remained stationary, because it has had the setting up, so it has moved anyway, even if it has the normal move more. So it means that the model can move completely within 3 inch, and then having the movement itself. So it's a way to gain movement to the unit that it's embarked. So it could bring a model to be able to reach more the assault phase eventually, because you can charge and make the fight. So it's a way also to make gaining movement to the unit itself. Some models of transports type has a rule called explodes. It means that when the model transport 1 is destroyed, it forces the unit that is embarked to be set up to disembark, and then you can remove this model of the vehicle. But you have also to make some rolls for the unit that has disembarked. You have to roll a die for each model that has disembarked, and for each one you kill the model. Literally, you don't have any save about. So pay attention when you set up such unit, because you have to remember that you have the rule that if there is no coherency, part of the unit would be lost. So pay attention to position in some way, in a safe way, the models that you want to keep, so that even if you fail a lot of these saves, you are not forced to sacrifice of the special models or the normal ones to make, but you can remove, I can say quite safely, the models. For example, if this is the sergeant and remove this, you should risk that you have to remove this ones or this one because there is no coherency. I don't think that it's a good thing to do, so remember about this. Moreover, the unit that has been forced to disembark because the transport explodes can't shoot, can't move, and can't charge, and can't perform heroic intervention, so there are quite a lot of limitations about. And a peculiar note about the positioning is that if you are surrounded by models because you are in close combat or so on and you try to disembark, remember that you risk to lose all the models in the unit, because if you are not able to deploy them completely within 1 inch, I want to remember you that you are destroyed anyway. So pay attention on how you are going to be assaulted or so on, because it can be quite bad eventually if they surround your vehicles with models that has a big enough base, or they keep the engagement zone to the limit so they don't go to the contact or so on, because in that case they can be even models that has a smaller base and still be dangerous for your units that are embedded if they surround you. So pay attention. Another thing is that the unit that made such type of disembarking are not allowed to charge or make heroic intervention in the same turn. So the transport are really a good ace, because they can save your models while you move on the field from the shooting of the enemy. They can make that you can improve your range to reach your enemy, because you have anyway more space, because you can disembark and then move. You can make that you can reach in the way that you can reach the objectives easier, because anyway it's again more inches to your movement. And also they can be useful because they can assault, charge the opponent units, and they can fight. And I want to remember you that I suggest you to go to see the shooting phase, because the transports are really good in shooting eventually. So they can be also, I can say sacrificed, but used in a good way to make that you can block a unit or eventually force it to falling back to be able to act normally. And at the same time, anyway, they can shoot to that unit. But I talk better in the shooting phase, so good to see that video eventually. So the transports are really quite good, and so I suggest you to think about having the transport in your army if you are planning to have a lot of infantry and you want that some elites or some type of your models are able to make some efforts, so eventually reach your enemy or going to catch objectives, so they can have that little, I can say, jump to use. So pay attention. Anyway, from Dino Mode it's everything. I invite you to put a like on this video, to subscribe to the channel, to ring the bell, and to comment this video if you are interested in something about this video or you want to suggest me some arguments for other videos. I hope to see you again to the next time.